At my promotion party, my wife's sister stood up and screamed, "He doesn't deserve that job. He slept his way to the top." The room fell silent as my boss glared at me. I stammered, "That's not true." She laughed coldly, then explained the emails I sent him. My wife turned pale. I turned around, grabbed the mic, and said, "Let's talk about what you did last summer." If someone had told me a year ago that my life would implode in the middle of a promotion party, I would have laughed them out of the room. Back then, everything seemed on track. I was finally getting recognized after 15 years of grinding my soul down to sand for North Point Freight, a logistics firm smack in the middle of downtown Chicago. I had a wife I loved, a modest but comfortable condo in Lincoln Park, and a new title, Senior Vice President of Operations. For once, I thought maybe, just maybe, I could exhale. The party wasn't my idea. My wife, Samantha Sam, to almost everyone pushed for it. She said I deserved a celebration after years of missed anniversaries, late nights, and half-eaten takeout dinners. I didn't argue. Maybe I wanted the attention more than I admitted. We booked the event space at the Dearborn, a nice spot near the Loop. Not too flashy, not too stuffy. Just the way I liked it. Friends, family, a few coworkers, drinks flowing, but not enough to get sloppy. I remember standing near the bar, watching Sam glide across the room in that dark green dress that made her look like a dream. I was laughing at something my boss, Mr. Vance, said about retirement being overrated when it happened. A loud screech of chair legs dragged against polished floors cut through the noise. Heads turned. There, standing rigid and pale under the soft overhead lights, was Brielle, Sam's little sister. Brielle always had a flair for drama, but even for her, this was extreme. She was shaking. Her hands, her voice, everything about her vibrated with something hot and ugly. "He doesn't deserve that job," she screamed. The words fell like bricks. The room went so quiet. I could hear the clink of ice settling in someone's glass across the room. I blinked at her, thinking maybe I misheard. But Brielle's face twisted into something meaner, something I barely recognized. "He slept his way to the top." My throat went dry. I looked at Sam, who was frozen halfway through a sip of wine, her knuckles white around the glass stem. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out at first. "That's not true," I managed, my voice sounding weak and foreign. Brielle let out a low, cold laugh, then explained the emails I sent him. The breath went out of the room. I could feel the burn of a dozen pairs of eyes on me, friends, co-workers, even Vance, his jaw tight and unreadable. Brielle smiled, but it wasn't a smile. It was the kind of look you give right before you smash a window. "Go ahead, Bryce," she said sweetly. "Tell everyone how you promised me favors if I kept quiet about you and Maya." Maya. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Maya McMillan, my assistant. Young, bright, too eager. The rumors had floated around the office before. I thought I'd executed them off fast enough. Sam's hand slipped from her glass. It shattered at her feet, but she didn't even flinch. I knew if I stayed silent, if I let Brielle write the story, it would be the only one anyone remembered. I grabbed the mic off the stand, my hand slick with sweat. "Let's talk about what you did last summer," I said. Brielle's face blanched so fast I thought she might faint. "You want to destroy me?" I said, my voice cutting through the room like a blade. "Fine, but we're telling the whole story." Sam's eyes darted between us, her face crumpling in slow motion. "You think I didn't know?" I said, breathing hard. "Nashville? The Hermitage Hotel? You and Jeremy Hanley, 3 nights on your parents' dime." Brielle stumbled back a step. Sam looked like I'd just slapped her. "You're lying," Brielle hissed. I shook my head. "Receipts, bank statements, hotel logs. I've got it all." Sam's voice cracked when she finally spoke. "Is it true?" Brielle didn't answer. She didn't have to. Sam's face twisted, something between grief and rage. Without a word, she turned and walked out of the room. I watched her go, every step feeling like another nail in the coffin. After Sam left, the room dissolved into quiet chaos. People murmured in little clusters, sneaking glances at me like I was some sideshow freak they didn't want to get caught staring at. My boss gave me a look that said this wasn't over and left without a word. I stayed there, rooted to the spot, gripping the mic like it could somehow anchor me to the ground. It couldn't. Brielle brushed past me, her shoulder hitting mine hard enough to jolt me. I caught a whiff of her perfume, sickly sweet and heavy, and it turned my stomach. I didn't follow her. I didn't follow Sam. I just stood there until the place emptied out, and the servers started clearing glasses off the tables with that awkward, too polite efficiency they save for disasters. When I finally moved, my legs felt like wood. Outside, Chicago's night air hit me like a slap. It was colder than it should have been for spring, the kind of cold that slips under your jacket and settles in your bones. I stood on the curb, blinking at the blur of headlights and the swirl of city noise. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't even look. I knew it wouldn't be Sam. It was Brielle. I let it ring out, then threw the phone into the back seat of my car and climbed behind the wheel. I didn't start the engine. Just sat there, staring at the dashboard like it might give me an answer. How had it gotten to this? The memory of Brielle's smirk, her voice cutting through the room, made my hands clench the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. She had set the whole thing up. That much was obvious now. The fake emails, the timing, the choice to burn me down in front of my boss, my friends, my family. But why? What the hell had I done to deserve it? The answer slid into my mind, slow and sickening. Nothing. I hadn't done anything to her. Not really. Brielle didn't hate me. She hated what I represented. Stability. Success. A life she thought Sam didn't deserve. Maybe a life she wanted for herself but couldn't have. Maybe. Maybe none of it made sense because crazy people don't need a reason. I sat there for a long time before driving home, crawling through the city like a man heading for his own funeral. When I opened the door to our condo, the silence was deafening. Sam's shoes were gone from the mat. Her coat was missing from the hook. A few framed pictures were turned face down on the shelves, like even the ghosts of our happiness couldn't bear to look at me. I walked to the kitchen and sat heavily at the counter. Stared at nothing. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked. A text from Sam. Need time. Don't contact me. Short. Sharp. Cold. I put the phone down carefully, like it might explode in my hand. For the first time in years, I cried. Not the dignified, single tear down the cheek movie kind of crying. No. It was ugly. Raw. I gripped the edge of the counter and sobbed like a man who had no idea how to fix the thing he'd broken. Because even if I hadn't cheated, no matter how many times I said it, Sam might never believe me now. Brielle had made sure of that. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I lay on the couch, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling while the city moved quietly beyond the windows. Every noise made me flinch. A car horn in the distance. Someone laughing on the sidewalk below. The pipes rattling in the walls. By morning, my head felt like it was packed with wet cotton. My throat was raw, my eyes gritty. I sat there long after the sun rose, not moving, not thinking, just breathing. In and out, trying to remember what normal felt like. Around noon, I finally stood up and made a pot of coffee I didn't even want. I poured a cup, took one sip, then dumped it down the sink. I knew I had to see Sam. Knew it the way you know you have to pull a splinter out, even if it's going to hurt like hell. I didn't text. I didn't call. I just grabbed my jacket and left. Her parents lived about 20 minutes away in Winnetka, a quiet, leafy suburb that always felt like stepping into a different world. Big houses with perfect lawns. Clean streets. Everything manicured and orderly. Everything I wasn't anymore. I parked 2 houses down, my heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted to escape. Sam's mom, Melanie, answered the door. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept either. She didn't invite me in. Just stood there, one hand on the doorframe, blocking the entrance with her body. She doesn't want to see you, she said quietly. I swallowed. Please. Just 5 minutes. Melanie shook her head, sadness weighing down her face. Not now, Bryce. Before I could say anything else, Sam appeared in the hallway behind her. Our eyes met. Something twisted hard inside me. She looked different. Smaller, somehow. Like she'd shrunk into herself overnight. She didn't speak. She just stared at me, her face shuttered, unreadable. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Melanie closed the door softly but firmly. I stood there for a long time, breathing in the sharp, clean smell of someone mowing their lawn a few houses away. I finally turned and walked back to my car, each step heavier than the last. I drove aimlessly for a while after that, the city blurring past me in streaks of gray and brown. Somehow, without thinking, I ended up outside Brielle's apartment building on the near north side. I stared up at her window. The curtain twitched. Of course she was watching. I texted her one word. Downstairs. 5 minutes later, she appeared. Tight jeans, oversized sweater, no makeup. She looked nothing like the smug, vicious girl from last night. She climbed into the passenger seat without asking. We sat there in silence. The air between us was thick and sour. You destroyed everything, I said finally, my voice low and even. Brielle let out a short, humorless laugh. You think you were doing such a great job keeping it together? You were living a lie, Bryce. I turned to look at her, really look at her. No, I said. You were. You're miserable. And instead of fixing your own mess, you set fire to mine. Her face crumpled for a second. Just a second. Then she hardened again. You think you're better than me, she said. You always have. I shook my head slowly. I never thought about you at all, Brielle. Not until you made sure I had to. The words hit harder than I expected. Her mouth twisted, and for a second, she looked like she might cry. But she didn't. Instead, she shoved the door open and stepped out. Before she slammed it shut, she said, You'll thank me one day. I sat there long after she disappeared into the building, her words echoing in my head. Thank her? For what? For tearing my marriage apart? For smearing my name in front of my boss and coworkers? For making sure that even if I was innocent, no one would ever fully believe it? The city moved on around me, honking and bustling and alive, and I sat in that car feeling like a ghost. A ghost who was still breathing. I didn't go home. I couldn't face the empty condo again. Instead, I drove. No destination in mind, just mile after mile of the city rolling past in a blur. South Side, West Loop, Back north again. I pulled into a random diner around dusk, a battered place called Lou Mitchell's, the kind of spot where the coffee is burnt and the waitresses call you hon. I sat in a booth by the window and ordered eggs I wasn't going to eat. Around me, life carried on. People laughing over pancakes, a kid drawing on a placemat, a couple arguing softly in the next booth. Normal. And here I was, a man who used to have a future, now just a hollowed-out shell. I pulled my phone out and stared at it. No new messages. I scrolled through old photos of Sam. Her grinning at Navy Pier, hair flying wild in the wind. Holding up a Cubs jersey she bought me for our anniversary. Sitting cross-legged on our couch, reading a book with that soft, furrowed look she got when she was lost in a story. I ached for her so badly it was a physical pain, like someone had reached inside me and twisted my ribs apart. I thought about texting her, begging her to just talk to me, but I didn't. Instead, I paid for my untouched eggs, tipped too much, and left. Outside, the air had turned sharp again, and the streets were slick from a quick rain that had passed while I wasn't paying attention. I stood there under the neon diner sign, the hum of the city around me, and for the first time since the night before, I let myself really think about it. About Brielle. About the fact that no matter how much I hated her for what she did, part of it, some ugly, unspoken part, was true. I had been coasting. In my marriage, in my job, in my life. Taking Sam for granted, assuming she would always be there. Answering her questions half-heartedly while checking emails. Forgetting things she told me because I was too tired or too distracted. Smiling without really listening. I hadn't cheated. But maybe, in 1,000 small ways, I had still betrayed her. And maybe Brielle saw that. Maybe she hated me for what I didn't even realize I was doing. The thought made me feel sick. I drove back toward Lincoln Park, the streets shining with puddles under the streetlights. Everything blurred and glistened like the world itself was underwater. When I got back to the condo, Sam's keys were sitting on the welcome mat. Not inside. On the mat. I stared at them for a long time, the meaning clear and cruel. She wasn't just leaving for a few days to cool off. She wasn't planning on coming back. My chest tightened, my fingers numb. I knelt down slowly, picked up the keys, and sat on the floor with them in my hand, feeling like I'd been emptied out and left hollow. Somewhere in the building, someone was playing music. Something soft and sad. It washed over me, and I let it. I stayed there until the hallway lights clicked off for the night, the darkness settling in like a second skin. Eventually, I dragged myself inside, locking the door behind me out of habit even though there was nothing left to protect. I dropped the keys on the kitchen counter and stood there in the dark. After a while, I opened the fridge and grabbed a beer, twisted the cap off, and set it down without drinking it. I stared at it. What was left? My marriage was probably over. My career was dangling by a thread. My reputation gone. And Brielle was somewhere out there, probably sleeping like a baby. The next few days blurred together into one long, sleepless stretch. I called in sick to work, ignoring the dozen voicemails from HR and Mr. Vance. I couldn't deal with it. Couldn't deal with anything. Mostly, I sat in the living room, staring at the walls, the TV playing muted reruns of shows Sam used to like. Everywhere I looked, she was there and not there at the same time. The closet, half empty. The bathroom counter, bare except for my stuff. The couch, where she used to curl up next to me on Sundays. I hated the silence. I hated the noise. I hated the space she'd left behind. By the 5th day, something in me snapped. I threw on a jacket, grabbed my car keys, and drove across the city to her parents' house again. I didn't care if they threw me off the porch this time. I needed her to hear me. When Melanie opened the door, she didn't look surprised. She just stepped aside and let me in. I found Sam in the living room, sitting stiffly on the edge of the couch like she didn't know what to do with her hands. She didn't say anything when she saw me. Neither did I. I sat down across from her and stared at the floor for a minute, trying to find the right words. Finally, I said, I never touched Maya. Sam didn't move. Didn't blink. I swear to you. I said, my voice cracking. Nothing happened. She nodded slowly, but it wasn't relief. It was something worse. I know, she said quietly. I believe you. I looked up, startled. You do? Sam shrugged, her eyes filling with tears. Brielle's a liar. She always has been. Then why? I started, but I couldn't finish the sentence. Sam wiped at her face. Because it doesn't matter if you slept with her or not. You left me a long time ago, Bryce. The words hit harder than any accusation could have. I opened my mouth to protest, to explain, to apologize, but she held up a hand. I don't want to fight, she said. I'm just tired. I'm so tired, Bryce. I sat there, feeling the weight of everything I'd never said, never noticed, never fixed. I love you, I said finally. Sam smiled, a small, sad smile. I know you do, she said. But sometimes, love isn't enough. We sat in silence for a long time after that. When she finally stood up, I knew it was over. There was no screaming, no big scene. Just two people who used to be everything to each other, standing in the ruins of what they used to have. She kissed my forehead softly, like you would a sleeping child, and left the room. I didn't follow. I couldn't. I sat there for a long time, listening to the distant hum of the city outside the windows, the muffled sounds of her packing upstairs. When I finally left, the sun was setting. The sky was streaked with orange and purple, and for a moment, it was so beautiful it hurt to look at. I drove back home to the empty condo. In the weeks that followed, I went back to work. Took the leave of absence Vance offered. Went to therapy. Tried to figure out where I had lost myself along the way. Sam moved in with a friend on the north side. We spoke a few times. Calm, civil conversations. No blame. No yelling. Just the sad, hollow logistics of untangling a life built together. As for Brielle, she disappeared from our lives. I heard through Sam's mother that she moved to the East Coast, trying to start fresh somewhere no one knew her name. Good riddance. The promotion went through eventually. Vance said it would have looked bad to backpedal after the blow-up. I got the title, the office, the raise. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like ashes in my mouth. Now, months later, I sit in my office downtown, looking out at the skyline. The city buzzes and breathes below me, alive and busy and uncaring. I think about everything I lost, everything I learned. I think about Sam, and how sometimes loving someone isn't enough to keep them. And I wonder if I'll ever stop reaching for her in my dreams. For a long time after Sam left, I thought that was it, that the story was over. But some things you can't just walk away from. Some wounds don't close right unless you stitch them yourself. Brielle didn't just wreck my marriage, she dragged my name through the mud at work, nearly tanked my career, humiliated me in front of everyone I knew. And even if Sam believed me, there were plenty of people who didn't. I saw it in the tight smiles, the sideways glances, the way some clients pulled their business without explanation. Brielle vanished after the blow-up. She moved across the country, supposedly to start fresh. But you can't outrun what you are. About 3 months after Sam and I signed the divorce papers, I got a message on LinkedIn. It was from a guy named Peter Lawson, a recruiter for a real estate firm in Boston. He asked if I knew Brielle Matthews. Apparently, she'd applied for a high-profile PR position there. Big salary, lots of exposure, the kind of job that required absolute trust. Peter said he was doing a background check. I stared at the message for a long time. I could have ignored it, could have deleted it and moved on. But I didn't. I sat down, cracked my knuckles, and wrote back carefully. I didn't lie. I didn't embellish. I told him Brielle had fabricated evidence against me at a public event, nearly caused a major impropriety at my company, and had a documented history of malicious behavior toward family members. I attached a copy of the security footage from the Dearborn that night. Someone had sent it to me after the party, maybe out of pity, maybe out of guilt. There was Brielle, red-faced and screaming, accusing me with no proof. There was me, calling her out with quiet, deadly precision. There was Sam, looking shattered. It was all there. I hit send and sat back in my chair, feeling lighter than I had in months. A few days later, Peter wrote back, "Thanks for your honesty. We'll be moving in a different direction." I laughed out loud in my empty office. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't violent. It wasn't even public. It was just justice. Brielle didn't get the job, didn't get the fresh start she thought she was entitled to. And me? I started to rebuild. Slowly, painfully, but honestly. I sold the condo, moved to a smaller place closer to the river, took fewer late nights at work, said yes when old friends invited me out, even when I didn't feel like it. I even started dating again, carefully, cautiously. Sam and I aren't close. Maybe we never will be. But sometimes she sends me pictures of the rescue dog she adopted, a scrappy little mutt with 2 big ears and a tongue that lolls out the side of his mouth. And I send back a thumbs up or a smiling emoji. No bitterness. No anger. Just 2 people who survived something ugly and kept going. Sometimes, that's the best kind of revenge. Living well, living free, and making damn sure the people who tried to destroy you have to watch you do it.